Admiral Zethkara studied the tactical display with 4 of his 6 eyes, the others monitoring subordinate reports streaming across his command console. The blue marble of Earth hung before his dreadnought fleet like a ripe fruit waiting to be plucked. His mandibles clicked in satisfaction. This would be the easiest conquest in the hegemony's 1,000-year expansion. Intelligence confirms minimal orbital defenses, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Vossum. Primitive nuclear missiles, some chemical propulsion vessels, their largest warship masses less than our escort frigates. Zethkara's thorax rumbled with amusement. The humans had been observed for decades, their violent tendencies well documented. They fought constantly among themselves with laughably primitive weapons, kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, crude energy weapons. The galactic hegemony had expected more resistance from a species that seemed to relish warfare. Deploy the pacification fleet, Zethkara commanded. Standard protocol. Eliminate their military installations. Occupy major population centers. The humans will surrender within 1 rotation once they see our technological superiority. The fleet descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Zethkara had brought 200 vessels, overkill for any primitive species. But the hegemony preferred overwhelming force. Each ship bristled with plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum disruptors that could level mountains. The first wave targeted military bases across the planet's surface. Zethkara watched with detached interest as beams of coherent energy lanced down from orbit, expecting to see the familiar pattern of surrender that had played out on 100 conquered worlds. Instead, the humans did something unprecedented. They adapted. Within hours of the initial strikes, human forces had scattered from their obvious installations, but rather than fleeing in terror as expected, they began implementing tactics that made Zethkara's combat algorithms struggle to compute probabilities. Sir, Vossum's voice carried a note of confusion. The humans are using our own weapon signatures against us. On the tactical display, Zethkara watched in growing bewilderment as human forces began mimicking hegemony energy patterns. They had somehow reverse-engineered his weapons' frequencies in mere hours and were broadcasting false signatures to confuse targeting systems. Impossible, Zethkara muttered. No species has ever— His words were cut short as proximity alarms screamed across the bridge. A human fighter, no larger than a hegemony escape pod, had somehow penetrated their shields and was approaching the dreadnought's primary reactor housing. How did it get past our defenses? Zethkara demanded. Unknown, sir. It appears to be broadcasting one of our own identification codes. The human pilot, a species the hegemony had dismissed as barbaric, had not only cracked their security protocols, but had done so while under fire, in real time, during active combat. The fighter's payload wasn't even particularly advanced by galactic standards, but it had been precisely targeted at the dreadnought's most vulnerable systems. The explosion that followed sent shockwaves through the entire fleet. But the humans were just getting started. Within the first day, they had captured 3 hegemony vessels intact. By the end of the week, human forces were using retrofitted alien technology against its creators. They hadn't just reverse-engineered hegemony weapons, they had improved them. Zethkara found himself staring at reports that defied everything the hegemony thought they knew about warfare. Humans were using quantum entanglement to create instantaneous communication networks across their planet. They had weaponized their primitive satellites, turning orbital debris into kinetic bombardment systems. Most disturbingly, they had begun modifying captured hegemony technology in ways that violated fundamental engineering principles, and somehow making it work. Admiral, Vossum's voice was barely above a whisper, the humans have established a beachhead on Deck 12 of the battlecruiser Dominance. What? Zethkara's mandibles spread wide in shock. That ship is in high orbit. Yes, sir. They appear to have used modified cargo pods as boarding craft. Their soldiers are adaptive, sir. They're learning our ship layouts in real time and turning our own security systems against us. The tactical display now showed something that would have been laughable a week ago. Human forces were winning. Not just surviving, not just resisting, but systematically dismantling a technologically superior invasion force through sheer adaptability and ruthless innovation. "How many ships have we lost?" Zethkara asked, though he dreaded the answer. 47 confirmed destroyed, sir. Another 31 have been captured or compromised. The humans are using our own vessels against us. Zethkara felt something he had never experienced in 2 centuries of conquest: fear. These humans weren't just fighting back. They were learning, evolving, adapting faster than any species had a right to. Every weapon the hegemony deployed, every tactic they employed, the humans countered within hours and turned it into an advantage. "Admiral," the communications officer's voice cracked with panic. "We're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's in perfect hegemony standard." On the main screen, a human face appeared, young, scarred, with eyes that held an intelligence that made Zethkara's blood run cold. "Admiral Zethkara," the human said, pronouncing his name with flawless diction. "I am Colonel Sarah Chen, United Earth Defense Force. We've been monitoring your communications. We know about your reinforcement fleets. We know about your homeworld. We know about your families." Zethkara's thorax contracted with dread. "We expected you to be tougher," Chen continued, a slight smile playing at her lips. "You expected resistance. Instead, you gave us the greatest gift any species has ever received: advanced technology and a valid reason to use it." The transmission cut out, replaced by tactical data that made Zethkara's worst fears seem optimistic. Humans weren't just fighting on Earth anymore. They were launching counterstrikes against hegemony worlds using captured vessels. They were recruiting other conquered species, sharing their adaptive tactics, turning the galaxy's greatest empire into its own worst enemy. As alarms blared and his flagship shuddered under human assault, Zethkara finally understood the reports from long-range scouts. Humans didn't just fight. They learned from every conflict, absorbed every lesson, and emerged stronger than before. The hegemony had expected resistance from another primitive species. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, a species that turned every challenge into an opportunity, every defeat into education, every war into evolution. They had expected resistance. They got annihilation.